Uncanceled Comedy Collective presents Top Censored News of the Week. It's Top Censored News of the Week. We're bringing you the stories the mainstream media just refuses to cover. If they do cover them, they always do it in a very dishonest or sloppy way, and it's always on purpose. I'm here with co-host Jay Scott. We're going to break down the top three stories that might have gotten lost to the sideline because it's been such a crazy week of news. But here's the first one we thought was very bizarre and disturbing, but nobody's reporting on it. Here it is. Number three, Animal Justice has filed a legal complaint with the CFIA over cruel methods it used to execute hundreds of ostriches at Universal Ostrich Farms. Here's the headline. And those are actual, murdered ostriches on purpose. They filed the complaint after they were shot right in front of each other. There was a massive amount of them. The killing of animals in view of terrified flock mates may be criminal animal cruelty. Oh, you think? Oh, yeah, it certainly is. A little video. I think Rebel News covered it a little bit, and so we're going to see this. I'm shocked they didn't take this one down from YouTube. Here we go.
Be horrific in case you missed it. Through the night, the Canadian Food Inspection Agency slaughtered them all. Slaughtered around 300 healthy, prehistoric creatures that were ostriches at Universal Ostrich Farms. Ostriches they had, some of them, for close to 30 years. My colleague Sid Fitzgerald's here. He just spoke with Dave, co-owner of the farm. So we will get that footage out to you. I am on the way to... Sorry guys, it's just disturbing to see. If you haven't already seen it, I've got it linked for you below, but I'm going to see if Katie and Karen are up. They were, of course, up all night crying.
Did you get stuck on the other side of the fence?
No, he was on this side.
Recently?
Well, I had talked to him when we found out.
Breaking. It sounds as though gunshots are being heard at the pen. I had to fight my way to get back on the property near the farmers, so I'm unable to film at this moment what's happening from the highway. We're going to get to Katie right now as she reacts.
They're like shooting them like...
So we'll see. But if you haven't, go to savetheostriches.com, the website where we and you guys, through your email campaigns, through your donations.
So that's really good what Rebel News is doing. But it's horrific. And you guys know that there's, animals watching each other get killed, know what's going on. Like you get shot in the back of the head, they respond. We know that happens with a lot of different animal species, and certainly with ostriches. So it's just another strike against the human species that they can do something like this. There's a before you chime in, Jay, there is a little good news that, as we say in the header, there is the complaint from Animal Justice, and it looks like that there's some action being taken right now. So we found this. Let's see. Yeah, here we go. This is actually the CFIA. They are seizing the properties of Universal Ostrich Farms. This just came in. Let me play a clip of this. Here we go. And this is good, and this is what investigative journalism is supposed to be about. You put eyes on things like this, and you can actually get justice sometimes. Here we go.
One more rolling out. Here we go. Commander heading the other direction. This could be it. I guess this is it. Well, from all appearances, this may be it. This is how the property was released. The seized properties are returned. Not a word from the police, not a wave, nothing from the CFIA. Just the paramilitary wing of the CFIA rolling out.
Yeah, I mean, it's good that we're actually seeing some results over there, and it seems like it was definitely something pretty cruel that happened to the ostriches. But I'll be honest, man. Like, I'm a vegetarian, and I don't really see too much difference between like what we do all the time on factory farms versus like what happened to those ostriches. Like, because if you look at some of the conditions, like a lot of these animals are kept in, it is pretty bad. So like, I'm glad that people are focusing on this story and highlighting it, but I just ask everybody to really consider, like, what we're doing with our own food supply over here, because it's not too different from the type of cruelty we saw over there. In fact, the types of conditions that we keep them in for most of their lives are definitely akin to torture for the majority of the meat, whereas those ostriches seem to have lived like fairly long lives, like out in the open, and it did come to a brutal end. But like, the animals that we're eating have been tortured for far longer, like than that went on. So, and that isn't the only way we could do it. Regenerative agriculture and like open farming could definitely produce some better results than what we're doing right now. But I would just say our food supply is probably a lot more cruel than what we saw happen to those ostriches, as bad as that is. So,
Yeah. Well, look, as cruel as it is, and you're right, this is just the way, this has been happening for years and years. But it's interesting that, and back to the on the ground journalism that can get something to happen. Isn't it bizarre that as bad as we treat these animals, we treat our own human species even worse? Because you go to the ground, you try to get into Gaza and say, look what you're doing to these people, slaughtering them. And first of all, they won't let you in. Second of all, they'll call you anti-Semitic. And third of all, they'll justify and say that these people are less than human. They're terrorists, and the babies are going to grow up to be terrorists. And they're going to kill us, so we have to kill them first. So in a weird way, these ostriches are being treated even better than our own human species, and which is bad enough. So it shows how diabolical we are, that we just make excuses and deflect and punish anyone. But at least something here. At least they're getting something done here. And
yeah, no, for sure. Props to Rebel News for getting the story out. And just to add to what you're saying, like, I don't have like the numbers and the statistics on this, but I can definitely share in my own feed. I'm hearing a lot more people, getting hit with long COVID, and likely a big part of the cause of that, is the mRNA injections that people have been taking that make them more vulnerable specifically to that. So, we are torturing people and giving people a long, slow death. So I agree with you. We treat our own at least as bad, if not worse, a lot of the time, than how we treat a lot of these animals. Yeah. So we really have to take a look inside and ask ourselves, hey, is there a way we can do this stuff better? And the truth is, yes. Like, we can do this stuff a lot better than the way we're doing it right now.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
Factory farming is not necessary. Factory farming is a relatively new thing. We definitely did not always do it in as cruel of a way as we're doing right now.
Yeah. All right. Well, moving on. Number 2 story of top censored news of the week. The FSB prevented a Ukrainian-British operation to hijack a Russian MiG-31 equipped with a hypersonic Kinzhal missile. Let's see this story reported from our good friends over at DD Geopolitics. Yes, this is the claim, and we've seen the we've seen the Western outlets pretend that Russia's making this up, but this is the correct story. According to the intelligence agency, the foreign side intended to use this incident as a large-scale provocation against Russia. Ukrainian military intelligence planned to send the hijacked MiG-31 to the NATO base area in Romania. And then the Russian pilots were promised $3 million for hijacking it. And the operation also involved Bellingcat, listed by the Russian Ministry of Justice as a foreign agent, the SFB reported. I did see I was going through the different Western outlets, and they all just said, this is just baseless claim. I did get one report that seemed to at least be accurate on what happened here. Here we
Federal
are.
Security Service, the FSB, announced it had foiled a plot by Ukrainian and British intelligence operatives to tempt Russian pilots into stealing a MiG-31 fighter jet armed with a Kinjal hypersonic missile. According to state media reports, the operation involved offering a Russian pilot $3 million to fly the aircraft toward a NATO airbase in Constanta, Romania, where it could have been intercepted by air defenses. The FSB described the plan as a large-scale provocation, alleging that Ukrainian military intelligence had sought to recruit Russian pilots for the mission. State television broadcast pictures of messages and recordings purportedly showing a man claiming to represent Ukrainian and British intelligence, offering not only money but also citizenship to a pilot willing to carry out the theft.
It's so interesting. This seems to be our technique, and it doesn't seem to work out that well. Every time we try to go in and bribe and push for some sort of infiltration, we always use that method of bribing, and it doesn't seem to work it's not working well in Venezuela. It doesn't seem to be working well here. But of course, that the information leaks or it's out on Russian outlets and different European outlets are I looked at European outlet. They're not reporting this accurately. We're certainly just ignoring it here. You're not even going to see this story at all on CNN or MSNBC. Obviously, they don't have time to cover this. But Jay, what are your thoughts on this right now? Does this mean that Ukraine and the Western Empire, NATO, is getting so desperate that they're willing to try anything? Is that where we're at right now?
Yeah, so there's a few things that could have been going on over here. There were some Russian outlets that were saying that, they intended to do a false flag. So they wanted the jet to, fire something like, at like a base over there, in NATO. And then it would have been blamed on the Russians as an excuse to get everyone else into the war. So that was one theory out there. Another theory, leans more towards what you described, that they were looking to essentially steal the jet so they could inspect the technology, because the truth is, like, Russia seems to have more advanced missiles than we do right now, at least publicly, unless there's some black ops projects that they haven't come public about. We don't really have hypersonic missiles, and they have hypersonic missiles that can be mounted on their jets and fired directly from the ground. So, I'm not sure which of those plans they were really going for, but I do know for a fact that it does look like Russian leadership is looking to avoid all meeting in the same place in case there's a decapitation strike that's been launched on them, because a lot of meetings where normally you would have Sergei Lavrov, the foreign minister, appearing alongside Putin so they could do these joint conferences together, they're now separating them because they realize that how desperate the situation is for Ukraine at the moment. And the truth is, there's just no hope of Ukraine winning this war without direct NATO involvement. The only hope they have is if they can find a way to get either the Americans or the Europeans involved in the war, because, like, the truth is, if the Europeans do wind up getting involved, Trump can huff and puff all he wants and he can say, oh, I'll let them handle it. The truth is, if the Europeans go in there, they're going to get their ass handed to them. And it's highly unlikely that America, as a founding NATO member, is going to stand by and watch other NATO members get slapped around by Russia and not do anything about it. So I just realized that Trump knows how unpopular that's going to be if we go to war with Russia to defend Ukraine. So he's not going to announce it ahead of time, just like he didn't announce ahead of time that we would be bombing Iran. But, look at what happened, when the shit hit the fan. So unfortunately, I really hope we can find a way to avoid it. But and I'm hoping that, it'll just find a way to work itself out and Ukraine will surrender to Russia, because that's the only hope we have here, because France and Britain keep talking about sending their troops in. They're still meeting about it and trying to figure out how they can do it. And if they do it, Trump can huff and puff all he wants right now. Again, I just don't see us standing by while they get slapped around. And just so everyone knows, there's zero hope that Europe can do it without us. And the truth is, even with us there, it's actually debatable because Russia can out-manufacture missiles than the entire NATO put together. Now, if America moved to a completely war-focused economy, maybe we could do it. But our manufacturing base is also, a lot more diminished now because we've outsourced all of our manufacturing to China. So I don't see like how this is going to turn out. The only thing I can see happening is Trump is really the demolition man who wants to destroy the American dollar to usher in a totalitarian, privatized stable coin, a programmable stable coin. Because guess what? If we spend all of our money fighting losing wars, that can actually wind up benefiting the elite in America because they profit off the military industrial complex and they can use it as a way to centralize their power. Because if all of the country is broke because our dollar has gone through a bunch of inflation and the government says, hey, we got some programmable stable coins that you'll be able to use to feed your family, but you can only spend this at Amazon and Walmart and our other big donors companies. And all you have to do is sign up for a digital ID, and then you'll be able to get access to this free money from the government. Well, that centralizes power. So I don't know what's going to happen. I hope that's not the plan and that's not what's going to happen, but it is a risk that we should all be considering, because as much crap as Trump talks about George Soros, he appointed George Soros's right-hand man who made his money off crashing the British pound to run our treasury. So how is it you're against Soros, but you're appointing his goons to extreme positions of power in your administration, and you're propping them up like they're the greatest thing ever?
I'm sure Trump's working on his next chess move right now, Jay. Give the guy another 24 hours. He's going to take care of it. Just
trust the plan.
By this time, I mark my word, 10D chess, Jay. 24 hours from now, he will have the Ukraine conflict solved, just like he promised. Okay.
I don't know. It's a sad situation, but let's see what happens, man.
Let's see what happens. Okay. Moving on to the number one story of top censored news of the week. YouTube removes 700 plus clips documenting Israeli war crimes. Now, who put those clips up there? Well, we'll get to that part in a second, but I liked Anna Kasparian did some good coverage on this. Let's check out her story on it.
YouTube has quietly deleted more than 700 videos that document Israeli human rights violations, war crimes, and other abuses as part of an effort by our government here in the United States to essentially bury evidence of Israel's war crimes in Gaza and the West Bank. Now, according to reporting from The Intercept, YouTube surreptitiously deleted all these videos in early October by wiping the accounts that posted them from its website, along with their channel's archives. The accounts belong to three prominent Palestinian human rights groups: Al-Haq, Al-Mezan, Center for Human Rights, and the Palestinian Center for Human Rights.
Which obviously were funded by Hamas, so that's why you have to get rid of these terrorist accounts, right? Okay. Yeah, sure.
That's that Qatari influence, man. You know how it goes.
Yeah. All right, we'll hear a little more.
These three YouTube channels hosted hours of footage documenting and highlighting alleged Israeli government violations of international law in both Gaza and the West Bank. And it's really important to have that record because, as we know, the Hasbara coming from Israel is strong. Our politicians are bought, and oftentimes bought on behalf of Israel, on behalf of doing favors for Israel. And I don't want what has happened over the last 2 years to be misrepresented in history books in the future. I want documentation of the war crimes that have been committed. But there is a very real effort, and a successful effort at that, to essentially wipe the internet of these videos.
Well, so she doesn't have to worry too hard, because I'm going to say this, Jay. There's enough of us who have grabbed these videos. There's enough of us that anticipate the censorship, anticipate channels being taken down. We've had our channel taken down. It no longer exists. Our first Homeless Left channel. You can check us out now on YouTube on THL Presents, but the Homeless Left YouTube channel is gone. And so we know this, so we capture this stuff. And so I don't, the fact that this is happening just is an indicator of, and I think we talk about this a lot, the desperateness of Israel as they're going down, kicking and screaming. They have to randomly. Why now? Why early October 25? Do you have to cancel these 3 channels? And one more point: the IDF and the Israel Zionists do plenty good job themselves of posting their own war crimes, and so I don't see them taking those channels down. They have people flown out there like Destiny, telling them, hey guys, let's huddle up. All right, let me tell you, the number one lesson I can tell you about committing war crimes is don't document yourself. Ha 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 ha.
Well, you know what they're going to have to do, Matt? They're actually going to have to stop us from translating Hebrew into English. They're probably going to remove that tool, and you'll be able to translate every other language: Spanish, French, Somalian, Russian, Chinese. You'll be able to find the AI that will translate all of those languages, but not Hebrew. Because the truth is, if all you do is listen to Israeli news and how they talk about the situation, and you translate it from Hebrew to English, you'll see the way they talk about the situation in Hebrew is very different from how they talk about it in English. So, I guess they'll have to figure out how they can pitch that to us next. But my guess is pretty soon they won't let AI translate Hebrew to English in real time. So let's see.
Yeah. I mean, they're working on it right now, Jay. But in the meantime, this is a point that's important here. I said this on a recent show, and I know it's bold to say this, but it's just my speculation or opinion of a hypothetical. If social media existed during Nazi Germany, would the Nazis be as gleeful about sharing their war crimes with the world on a platform that is forever? The internet is forever. Would they? My guess, and I'm just guessing, they couldn't be any more gleeful about it than the IDF is. You couldn't be any more. So I would say less. But these people, they don't believe what they're doing is wrong. They're not ashamed. So the idea that we have to
I think the Nazis really believed that what they were doing was the right thing, just like how the Israelis really believe that what they're doing is the right thing. So honestly, my guess is although I don't even know if Israelis believe that, because I've heard them advocate, against telling the truth in English. I've heard them actually do that. So there's a certain percentage of them that know what they're doing is wrong. So I don't know, but it's debatable. It's a toss up.
Okay, maybe I'm more leaning towards that there's a certain attitude that you see when you look at Nazi behavior. There's this very we're gonna keep things kind of on the down, like what we're gonna do in these secret little back rooms and stuff. And there's just this idea that if you actually, and this is not real. This is like an alternate timeline where if you had an iPhone in your hand, could you see them doing the insanity we've seen from the IDF, like the way they barbecue right in front of the starving and murdering and blowing and laughing and celebrate? Is that something? Well, I don't know. I'm just guessing here. But
well, here's the thing. Yeah. And this is, I don't even know if I should say this on YouTube, but I will say, I do think that there was definitely discrimination against Jews in Nazi Germany. And I do think, there were definitely a lot of Jews killed, but personally, I do have questions about the mathematics of how 6 million, of them did wind up dying. So I do actually have questions about what actually happened back then. But I do agree for sure that there was, a lot, and I'm half Ashkenazi. So, this is nothing against Jewish people again, but I do wonder about if some of that history may have been rewritten a little bit, just when I look at the actual numbers. But, the truth is there was discrimination happening. That did happen. And sure. I'm sure that there was a large amount of Jews who did die. I'm sure that did happen. So, but I do believe that they thought what they were doing was right. So if they had access to social media, they probably would have shared a certain amount of what they were doing. And then, I'm sure the same way the Israelis believe, well, we got to do what we got to do. It might get a little ugly, but ultimately we're in the right. And even the ones who don't want to say what they're doing in English, they probably have that belief because they think we're stupid and we can't understand that what they're doing is actually the right thing in the long
So
run.
that's the
yeah,
distinction. That's
yeah,
actually you just touched on the real distinction. Isn't whether Nazis and IDF, whether they believe they're right or not. They all believe they're right. That's why they're doing it. There is a difference, I believe, in the ability to perceive how the rest of the world sees them and how their actions would be perceived if they were to put them out. So that's an adjustment you make when you are aware, when you're more self-aware that your behavior will be frowned upon. Then you don't go and try and get a million hits on your
Well, don't forget, the Israelis want to hide it too. Benjamin Netanyahu got mad at the lady who released the footage, of the IDF soldiers raping the Palestinian hostage. So they do want to censor like what they're doing, and they do want to censor what's going on to an extent. But, I guess the wider population, some of them have a little bit less circumstantial awareness about, how what they're doing is going to be perceived. So I don't know.
Well, we'll top this one off with this, because we were covering that the rape of the Palestinian prisoner, that the one that did get released. We know that there's been countless others, but this is the one that did get documented and was released to the public. And like you said, people weren't rioting and upset that the rapes happened by the IDF soldiers. They were upset that it got out. So they knew so they were celebrating these soldiers like heroes. And so this is yet another video that came out from Tel Aviv in a celebration moment with these rapists. And everybody in the video knows they're in a video and they know it's going out on the internet. This is how diabolical this society has become. Check this out. Everyone in that room. If you're smiling at this and laughing, and look, do you see the cell phones? This is what I'm talking about, Jay. Mm-hmm. There's no self-awareness that you're hugging and cheering and treating these people like heroes when everybody knows that they're disgusting, horrible people that do these evil acts on other people there's no justification for their actions. And everybody in that room knows that. They don't care, and they're filming it and they're posting it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. It's really strange to see them celebrating this type of depravity out in the open. But again, they believe that they're in a righteous holy war, and that's why the Nazis believed the same thing. They believed that they were in a holy war, against the Jews, and that's why if you actually look at the history there, there was very few Jews that were emigrating to Palestine before the rise of the Nazi party. So they actually feed off each other. And that's why, personally, I believe they're all being manipulated by forces above that. But, this is where we're at. I don't see that much of a difference between both sides. They both think they're right. They both are discriminating, against large groups of people based on religious beliefs. Because, and you have some people like the other Nick, out there advocating right now for a holy war, against Jewish people in general. So it's we have to learn from history, eventually, and you don't want to give people a reason to play the victim. And if there's open discrimination against a religion, an entire religion, or an entire ethnic group of people, that justifies not what Israel is doing to Palestinians, but it gives them more of a reason to say, look, we need our own state. Look, we need to be able to have our own place. So we have to ask ourselves where this leads, and we have to be careful about how we address the problems, because we don't want to become the issue that we're fighting. So
one of our viewers, Jungle Jer, wants to remind you, Jay, that haven't you heard it's anti-Semitic to translate Hebrew to English? You better watch yourself, Jay, with those translations. I'm just a fair warning. We just look after each other here on the Homeless Left. But that's it, guys, for the number one story. The YouTube removing the 700 plus clips documenting Israeli war crimes. they're not going to be able to remove the clips that Israel citizens and Zionists are posting and IDF soldiers are posting on their own. So they're not going to get them all. 700 is just the tip of the iceberg.
There's one number I want everyone to remember. 60% of Israelis believe every single Palestinian should be wiped out. They believe that 60% of Israelis believe that every single Palestinian, man, woman, and child should be killed. So that country has problems. Like they need to go through a denazification thing, just like what Germany went through, if there's any hope of saving that population. That is absolutely amazing. 60% of them want to kill every man, woman, and child. Just remember that.
Yep. And that should do it for this week's Top Censored News of the Week.